If you're wondering what keywords are selling right now on eBay, then I have got you covered in this video. We're going to be looking at a variety of different keywords and listings that are currently selling. And this is really going to help you get items that you already have listed in front of more buyers, the right buyers, and get them seen and sold. If you're new to the channel, then welcome. My name is LeeMeier, and I'm a stay-at-home mom of four. I've made well over $100,000 net profit flipping used clothes and other items on sites like eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. And now I'm on a mission to help at least 1,000 resellers be able to hit that $100,000 mark for themselves. To help you out, I've got a ton of free goodies for you. Down here in the description below this video is where you will find those. And this includes things like my best brands list, the list of 150 brands that has led me to the $100,000 mark and beyond. You'll also find a link to sign up for my free $100,000 reseller challenge. In that free challenge, I show you exactly how to hit $1,000 for yourself this year. It's not about working harder. It's not about hustling harder, putting in more time. And I show you actually how to get there in very minimal time, very part-time hours. And in that free challenge, you're also going to discover the very best things to be selling right now in today's market. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in to today's topic, and that is keywords and listings that are currently selling right now. All right, so this first item that we're looking at is using the keyword cottage core as well as feminine. Now, with these videos where I'm showing you what is sold now, what I do and how I put these together is I sort sold listings by most recently sold so that these are the freshest available to you. They're basically from the morning of this video. It does take me a little while to get the video edited, get it published out to you. So there's a little bit of a delay there, but these are really fresh sales. And so this is one where they are using some of those aesthetic based keywords. Now, sometimes when I have a video I did, it does change a little bit as I'm putting the video together. And this is a case that really did apply because as I started pulling in listings that happened, the sales that happened just today, there were very few where they actually used aesthetic based keywords. So those are cottagecore, feminine. That has to do with the look of the item. Most sellers are just sticking with physical keywords, the keywords that you can see, such as this is short sleeve, but they're leaving out all of those aesthetic style based keywords. And this leaves a huge opportunity for sellers like you who are watching this video and who are in the know to be able to use those aesthetic based keywords, be able to get your listings in front of the right buyers. And I'm hearing from so many of you that are watching these videos about keywords that you've gone back and infused your current listings and suddenly there's traffic on them. Suddenly there's sales. So that is my hope with this video, that you're able to go back into the listings that you already have, that you've already spent time on, money on, and be able to turn them around and start bringing in sales. So again, cottagecore and feminine with this one. In this listing, they also did use some keywords down in the description. So on eBay, you can use keywords in the description just very casually in a paragraph format, or listed out just like this seller did here, where they said style details, and then they have listed feminine, romantic, ruffle party, spring, summer, Easter. The other place where you can use keywords in addition to the title are here in the item specifics. And there's multiple places to be able to do that. Theme is one of the places where you can put in some of those aesthetic based keywords. There's a few options there inside of eBay's pull down. There's also, of course, any of these where you're putting in the sleeve type, the dress length. Those are all keywords as well. Neckline, that's another keyword. And those are really built in to eBay to help shoppers find the items that you're looking for. And of course, the third place to put keywords is directly in the title. A lot of times there's not enough room, and so that's why you would want to add more to the description. This is a dress from Laura Ashley where they did use that cottage core keyword. They also have drop waist in here, and that just means that waist is a little bit lower. That one sold for $95. This is a tank top from Miss Sook. I'm not sure if I'm saying that brand correctly. Very common brand. Definitely a bolo to watch for. But with this one, they use the keyword of quiet luxury. So this is a good example of a keyword that you can use for an item that is more relatively plain. Like there's nothing really special about this. There's no sort of design on this one. Some other good keywords for this type of item are things like basic and capsule, like you're wearing it in a capsule wardrobe. So by the way, all of these are sold items that I am showing. It does say down here on the picture, and any price mentioned, that is without a best offer accepted. When a best offer is accepted, there's actually a strikeout through this price as well as the words best offer accepted. In those sorts of cases, when I'm pointing out the price, I'll always try and show you what the actual best offer amount is. And I do have a video where I walk you through how to do that for yourself when you're doing your own research and you're going, how much did this actually sell for? That video will walk you through how to do that. This next one is one from the Free People brand, but they use some other keywords in here to help get it in front of the right buyer. So boho, that's probably one of the more mainstream, like more used, widely used keyword, but it's still very popular and a lot of shoppers are still looking for this look. So boho is one of those aesthetic, but then they also use some other keywords in here like crochet. They could have also used French with this one. And those are more physical based keywords, but they still, definitely help get items in front of buyers. So that one sold for 49. This is another one where they use that keyword boho. They did type out the whole bohemian. They also used geo for geometric. And this is a brand that's called Savannah Jane. And it does have a lot of that geometric design there around the neckline of that dress. Now with this one, this is a brand that's called Rising is International. So I do want to point this one out because this is one to watch out for. And with these, you're going to see a lot of this kind of block and patchwork design. They did use some really good keywords in here. Again, boho, that's another one, that's widely used, as I mentioned, but whimsical as well as cottagecore are the other keywords that they used in that listing in that title. Now, a lot of people are not, what I'm noticing as I am doing this research, a lot of people are not putting, a lot of sellers are not putting those keywords in the description. They're leaving the description fairly well blank. This is one where the seller actually did use keywords in the item description, and they used it in a very natural way in a paragraph format where it's not just a big list. So it says features a whimsical romantic fairy design, and they explain a little bit more about this item. And they really just infuse that description with a lot of keywords. So that's again another really good place and a way that you can do that very naturally. So with this one, this is a Y2K dress. This is from a brand, Jonathan Merton. Not super familiar with it, but this one definitely sold for the style and those style based, those keywords that they use with this one, in addition to Y2K, which is kind of the era, kind of the look of items, right around the turn of the millennium. The keywords that they used were whimsical as well as romantic. Now, this is a dress where they just really infused this one with keywords because this one didn't happen to have a brand. It does have a material tag, but it didn't have a brand tag as part of it. So there's the material tag, but it's not any sort of special brand. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it. So it's got some bows up there at the shoulder straps, definitely floral print. And they used some keywords of retro, homecoming, coquette, feminine, cottage, and all of those do fit really well with this item. So I would recommend, and they did down here in the description include even more. So I would recommend 3 to 5 that really describe your item well. If you've got room for a little bit more, or you feel like there's more that fit, then you can add those down there in the description just like they did. But I wouldn't go too overboard, and definitely I would not recommend using keywords that don't fit with the item. So for example, gothic, goth. I would not use those keywords, with this item. That's considered keyword spamming and can actually hurt you in search results. Now, All of these aesthetic-based keywords can be really hard to remember when you're trying to type up your listings. So I do have a poster that makes this super simple. I'm going to link to that over here. This is one where they used, again, it's a kind of a very basic item, just like that tank top that we looked at earlier that was a solid print. With this one, they actually used the keyword minimalist. So that's another good keyword to use for these kind of more plain items. And you'll notice they also use that keyword of quiet luxury as well. So this is a Eileen Fisher dress. And then that one went for about $31. This is a London fog trench coat. And with this one, they use the keywords of business as well as career. And then they also mentioned that the coat has a paisley lining. So you can see that print there as I zoom in on that one. With this nightgown, this is from a brand called Lucera. This one, they just use the keyword cottage. So it does have kind of a little bit of lace detail up here or embroidery detail up there at the top. And so that is something that really does fit with that cottage or cottage core keyword. Now, a lot of sellers, as I mentioned, are missing out. They are not using those. So again, that makes a really good opportunity for you to come in and be able to fulfill that need, because that is the way that shoppers are shopping for items, is based off of those looks, especially if it's an item that's not a big name brand or even unbranded items. That can be a really good way to get your items in front of the right buyers. This is a dress where they use the keyword pinup, and you can see that it has that halter neckline or halter around the neck, as well as kind of a sweetheart neckline on that dress. So they did use pinup as well as retro with that item. This is an example of an unbranded item. Now, I do not recommend spamming and putting in other brands that do not apply. So they did use Free People. This is not a Free People item. So I definitely do not recommend that. And they did, in the description, they did clarify that it is unbranded. They did a little bit more spamming as far as different brands in here. And they say, wear with your favorite Free People bell bottoms, Birkenstocks, and Gucci bag. That's probably a pretty good example of spamming a little bit when it comes to those other brands, because that's not what this is. And you don't want to be misleading. You don't want to violate any of eBay's rules. So let's talk about what they did right and the keywords that they did use correctly with this. And so you're going to see Chamayo. This one, keyword I do see being used quite a lot. There is a definite look with that keyword. It is a location in New Mexico. So that is that keyword. And the serape refers to kind of that blanket that is the traditional Mexican blanket or poncho. And then they also use bohemian as well as Western and waterfall for that one, I'm assuming because of the front drape like on that. So that one sold for $69, even with it being an unbranded item. Now, this next one, I was going to start down here in the description. And here they did put in quite a few keywords: bohemian, witchy, whimsy, goth, cottagecore, coastal grandma, fairy core, artsy hippie, nature fairy. So quite a few that they did put in there. So let's take a look at what this item is. And this is one that is again, a little bit more on the plain side. It's a solid color, not any sort of crazy print, not any sort of crazy design, but a lot of those keywords that they did use do fit with that. So in the title, they did use boho as well as whimsy. It's a button-up hooded vest. So there's what the back looks like. It has a little bit of kind of a looseness to it, so I could see how it could fit with maybe that fairy look, that whimsical look for that item. And then that one sold for $30 without it being any sort of huge name brand. So the brand on this one is actually For Cynthia is the brand name. With this one, this is a handbag chain strap, but this one has a tapestry design on it. So this is one that falls under more of that physical features that you can see. This is another bag, and they did apply some of aesthetic-based keywords like bohemian and festival to this bag. So I did want to point that out. And they did use some other keywords to describe kind of the pattern of the item: Aztec and Southwestern for this bag. give you a few more pictures of this. So some stripes as well as some geometric designs. And then that one sold for $40. This is another bag while we're on the topic of bags. It's actually what is called a bucket bag. So you can see that it's flat on the bottom and then it has the drawstring around the top. That's kind of the typical shape of a bucket bag. So there's the bottom there. And that is one of the really important pieces when it comes to selling bags is being able to name it correctly for what somebody would be looking for. So that one sold for $60. Another bag for you real quick. This is a crescent sling. So you can see that by the shape there. That's from Madewell, and that one went for $55. And then this is a tooled leather. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that. But you can see how the flowers there, that is the tooling. That is what that refers to, is just kind of a decorative design into the leather. Not any big name brand is actually unbranded, but because the seller was able to describe this really well, then that one sold for $30. Another bag real quick. This is what is called a doctor's bag. So you're going to see how there is a frame across the top. There's a metal frame across the top of this bag. And so it opens up just like, a doctor's bag might. Maybe you had a doctor's bag as a kid and had, doctor's toys in that. That is what this is. And so that one sold for $65 from Brighton. Now, I do have a poster that covers specifically bags and all of those different types of bags, because again, I know it can be really hard to remember, especially when you're on the spot of trying to type up listings. So I'm going to link to that resource over here. This is another tapestry item. So we looked at one tapestry item that was a bag. This one is actually a vest. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that for you. So you can see there's somebody riding a horse there. It looks like some garden grounds. And they used with this one a couple keywords here, one of Victorian, and then another one here of Grandma Core. So I think both of those do work pretty well with that item. This is a brand that does not usually sell for very much. So it's called Flying Tomato. Maybe you've seen that. I've come across it a few times and gone, oh, this must be a good brand. It's an interesting name, and it's not really. So this is just a dress, but they did fit in some keywords in here in the title that did help this item sell for a little bit more money. So the boho is one of them, as well as Western and hippie. So that one sold for almost $31, having those extra keywords in there, getting it in front of the right buyers. This is a Michael Kors item, and they did use a keyword in here of bedazzled. So this is an example where it's a more subtle item. It does have a little bit of a open knit to it, a little bit of metallic thread woven in there. So that one sold for $63 using that keyword. This is one where we're going to look at the description first. Keywords in the description are Y2K, boho, festival, Ren Fair, pirate, and fairy. So Renaissance Fair. Had to think for a second on that one. This one is actually belt. So they did duplicate most of those keywords that I just mentioned. They did put those in the title as well. So you'll see them there in the title. And then this is what this belt looks like. And with this one, they did a really good job describing the item. This one sold for $40. And you see it does have some wear there in the leather of that item, some fraying at the edges of that. So $40 for that. This is from Escada, and this is definitely a Bolo brand, definitely a higher end brand. So there's the tag if you haven't seen that before, but they did pair, a good brand along with another keyword that's really trending right now, and that is romantic. And so that blouse sold for $195. This is another item where it's a little bit more of a plain item. And you might be going, okay, I've got plain items. What kind of keywords do I use? So this is a brand 120% lino, I'm assuming is maybe how you say it's a linen. And the keyword that they used with this one is minimalist. So again, minimalist, basic, capsule, any of those types of keywords can fit these more plain items. So that one sold for about $66. This is from the brand Flax. Another one where any of those keywords that I just mentioned, basic, capsule, minimalist, would work really well. But the other keyword that works with a lot of these Flax items is what is called log and look. And that's kind of a layered look, is the translation of log and look. And they are often oversized items as well. And so then that one sold for $32. Now with this one, this is actually an Old Navy jacket. And you'll see here on the tag, this is a little bit more unusual tag. So it does say mechanics here and then Old Navy. So this is a chore coat. Here's what this looks like. So they use the keyword, chore coat. That's just the style that it is, as well as it is Sherpa lined, and that's just kind of a high pile fleece. Fortunately, it doesn't look like they have a great picture of what the Sherpa looks like on the inside of this one. And I also did want to mention this. So they had this really cool measurement to be able to write down the measurements, mark if there's any flaws on that item. And that can be really helpful to speed up your listing process. So I do have cards available in my shop. I'm going to link to over here. This next one's another bag, and with this one, they used the keyword hippie, and this is a Coach bag. There you can see in the title that they used the keyword hippie. There's what that looks like. That one sold for $70, and then I'm also noticing that they used the keyword saddle bag, which does describe that item pretty well. Now, this is a Zara jacket, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this because this one has quite a few details. It's actually missing one button there. It has a definite military look, so they did use military there in the title of the item, and then that one sold for about $43. This is a blouse from the Gap. Here's what this looks like. It is not the best pictures. I did get a close up here. And so this is what I wanted to point out with this one is it is a small flower print. There's the Gap tag. And that plain, just button up shirt from the Gap sold for $30. And the keyword that they used here for that type of print, that little all over flower print, is what is called ditzy. So you'll see that in the title. This is a button-up shirt from Liz Claiborne. This is what is called chambray, which is very similar to denim, just a little bit lighter. And then that one sold for $90. They also used a keyword there of embellished because it does have that eagle on the back that has that embellishment. Now, this is an Ann Taylor item. This is actually a suit jacket, but I did want to zoom in on this fabric to show you the herringbone. So that is another thing that I see a lot of sellers struggle with is the difference between herringbone and houndstooth and often getting the two interchanged. So with herringbone, it does look like fish bones and it does kind of have a little bit of a striped look to it. That blazer sold for $31 and the seller did put herringbone in there. This is houndstooth on the other hand. So this is a Ralph Lauren bag. So just wanted to put those two side by side. With this one, this is a Coach bag, and this does have to do with the print of the item is why I'm showing you this one. But this is actually what is called op art, which is optical illusion art. And that is a keyword that buyers are searching for. So they did use that for for this item because it does have a little bit of an optical illusion look to that. And then that one sold for $35. Now I do have a brand new poster that specifically covers different types of fabrics or prints to know about. This is super in-depth. This is more than just stripe and solid. I guarantee that you will learn new terms from this that will help you be able to better describe your item. So I'm going to link to that over here. This next blouse is another unbranded item, but they did a really good job describing this item. So not the best of pictures, as you can see, it's pretty dark. It looks like quite a bit of stuff in the background. And there's a lot of lace on this item as well as ruffles. So they did use those keywords, of course, of ruffle and lace. But so they did put another keyword in here of pirate as well as cosplay. And that one sold for $35, even with this being an unbranded item. This is a jacket that sold where they're using that keyword of nautical. So anytime you have a peacoat like that with that notched collar, that can be a really good time to use that keyword. And then that one sold for $50 plus shipping. This is a pair of shoes where I had to show this one because the seller could have done quite a bit better. on describing this item. So they pretty much just put loafer and then, which I'm not even sure if that is the the word that I would have used with this one, and then the color. So with this one, let's talk about some of the keywords that maybe should have been used instead. So one of them would be brogue, and that just has to do with the decorative punching of holes. And so you can see that definitely has that. You can use that keyword for any shoe that has that kind of look to it, that design to it. The other keyword that they could have used here is wingtip, and that just kind of refers to that seagull. Like when you were a kid and drew the seagull, that is what that wingtip is. So they could have used that as one of their keywords. They could have also used derby or Oxford, which refers to the style of the shoe. Technically, this is a derby, but a lot of shoppers do use the term Oxford. And they could have also used maybe chunky or platform with that one. It's still sold for $50, but I saw this item and I thought really a lot more keywords should fit with this item. A lot more keywords could have been put into use. This is another pair of shoes, and they did use chunky on this one as well as platform. So these are Converse, and you can definitely see how thick those are there. And they did put that in the title, and then those sold for about $55. This is a pair of Western cowboy boots. So they did put Western as well as cowboy boots. Those are kind of the obvious keywords when it comes to this one. But what I wanted to point out here is that they did use the keyword snip toe. So that's just a style of toe, round, square, those are pretty obvious. But with a lot of the Western boots, they do have what is called a snip toe. So you can see that it's a little bit cut off. That point is cut off. And so that is what is called a snip toe. I do have all these terms and more when it comes to shoes on my brand new shoe poster. This covers every keyword you would ever need to know when it comes to shoes. So I'm going to link to that over here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps you be able to infuse your listings with keywords that sell and that it brings in more sales right away when you get your items in front of the right buyers. Now, if you're looking for more of those aesthetic-based keywords, I do have a video where I go through even more in depth, and you'll find the link to that video up here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will catch you in the next video soon.